At last our journey has come to an end, or is it just a beginning? The perilous maze is finally behind us, and the Azurite Sea has started to calm. A handful of familiar ships have docked in the bay off the coast of an isolated landmass, and as you disembark your vessel, you notice tiny waves crashing into the shoreline beneath your feet, and when you look up, you catch the glimpse of a pristine palace. A palace where a legendary duel will soon take place. Welcome to Azurite's Island. And welcome back to another episode of the Ink Table Podcast, where we start what we started as table talk at our local game store between our hosts and fellow Illumineers, Dylan Bailey and Preston McNair, has led us here. And now, about every month, we get together around the metaphorical ink table and share our table talk with you. So if you enjoy Lorcana, art, lore, comedic banner, and all things Disney, then come gather around and pull up a seat, because you're in for a treat.
Thank you, John.
I love it.
Again, welcome to Archazia's Island, everybody. We're finally here. So, some quick housekeeping before we get into the actual show, besides that new intro there that we have. Just want to say thank you to everybody who has been following us so far on this journey. It's been, 4 or 5 months now, Preston?
Something like that. I know this is now the second set that we're doing this, but we're seeing a lot of folks pop up from all the places now, really. So we got Facebook now, we got Instagram, we're popping up all over the place, and the traction's been incredible. 100 likes on the Facebook page in a week, is that right, Dylan?
Yeah, so we just started a Facebook page and an Instagram page for the Ink Table Podcast, so it's an excellent way for you guys to interact with us, follow along, share your thoughts and your stories with us. And yeah, I think in less than a week, we have over 100 followers on our Facebook, and that's the Ink Table Podcast. And then our Instagram, the Ink Table. Feel free to come follow along, send a like, send a follow. And see our story as we share everything that we post. And speaking of which, we have some content coming along with this new set. Yes, we will be doing our monthly podcast that you can catch the audio version, or you can see this version on our YouTube channel. But we will also be having weekly unboxing videos for a set period of time. Once we receive our boxes and our cases, we're going to try to upload a video where, just like before in Azurite Sea, but we're going to have a little bit more. Instead of just 3 videos, we're looking at doing 8 to 9 videos possibly, spread out once a week for 8 to 9 weeks in a row. Then we will have articles and reviews on both Disney movies, on Lorcana products, because there's constant information popping up. And we've already had it in the past where we had to break our monthly cadence and try to get everybody together to talk about some of that news that was all being released all at once. So now with Facebook and Instagram and our other social pages and our website that we have, theinktable.com, we will have articles posted whenever news drops. That way you guys can still catch our thoughts on the new news and the new products without us actually having to work and get together and try to get everybody together at the same time around all of our schedules to post something or record something. You'll have the news almost right away.
And it's fitting that we've kind of had to adapt to this, because it's been, we'll talk about information overload, but we're also really starting to focus a little bit more on short form now. It's something we've done in the past. Dylan has done a few lore shorts, which performed really well. And now we're starting to actually do short form with the clips itself. You always have the chapters at the bottom of the YouTube video to navigate on through, and you can always seek through on whatever platform you're listening on. But now we're kind of taking the highlights of the podcast episodes and the cards and what have you, and expect a lot more short form content popping up on Facebook and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels too. So it's wild how this started as just a podcast type thing, and it's like, now we're like, okay, there's so much information. How do we not strain ourselves, but then also still continue to put out content. So we're really optimizing the content, and really kudos to Dylan and John, because they went all out and got a case. And if the wives are listening, sorry to break that bad news and whatnot, but so I'm excited to see the unboxings. They got together in the past. It's hard with my schedule to get together with them, so kudos to them to kind of bring that different type of content to the channel and to the ink table, really. And I'm really excited to see what they pull, because there's some really spicy cards this set. But it's exciting to see this expand out, and we're in March, so it's nuts. So everyone's put, in their own way, has put a lot of work into this. So it's a team effort. I'm more on the YouTube thumbnail short side. Dylan's more on the social media article writing side. John already does more than enough for us producing this. So it's a nice team effort. It's nice to see everything kind of come into play a little bit. We're getting into a flow.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all about adapting. This whole thing before the podcast, it really did start, as John said in the intro, as just table talk amongst two friends who first met playing Lorcana, and John overheard, and he really liked the things that we were talking about, and him with the podcast experience, he's really the one who brought us together and pushed us to do this podcast in the first place. So now we're just taking that table talk and trying to share it with everybody, because, I mean, if John likes it, I'm sure there's other people out there that have an interest in the things that we have to say, whether it be our lore theories or our gameplay or our deck ideas or whatever. And we want to hear from you guys too. So again, that's what the social media is all about, is so we have these interactions and you guys can share your thoughts as well.
Yeah.
But that brings us to today. It's not just look at the future and what our future content is. Let's check out today's main topic. And today's topic, as you can see, audio podcast listeners, in the name of the title, is the duel. We now have Duel Link, which we might not have all full thoughts on yet, because we really haven't played with Duel Link yet. We've had sealed events. Yeah, we haven't had constructed at all. So our next podcast episode will be our first episode actually talking after we have played constructed events within Archazia's island. So we don't really have a read for Duel Link yet, but we'll see. And then we have the Duel of Friends, where once again, me and Preston have found ourselves matched up in our sealed events. But it always happens. We'll save that for later. And then maybe we'll do another Duel of Friends in our next episode or next iteration of our Disney trivia. So for anybody listening, if you wait until later in this episode, or just you have no interest in Lorcana and you're just here for the Disney stuff, you could jump right to our Disney trivia section, and you can play along with us and test it out and see how well you know your Disney trivia, and you can sit there and laugh at us as we get all these answers wrong.
Most of them wrong, granted, but it is what it is. But also, it's not only a duel of friends, but it's a duel of foes a little bit too, because just like John mentioned, we're at the island. We are on Archazia's island, and there's a lot to share as we get into things like, Archazia's island. We're only 48 at a few days into this at this point, and it's information overload, and we'll talk more about constructed, but really it was hard to get a vibe check for how Duel Inks were gonna be, because sealed is sealed. You're not doing constructed. We know that there's a few events that happened over the weekend that was constructed. We'll save that talk for the next episode, but kind of getting into what kind of like present day, in a sense, we're not worried about what's crazy out there and whatnot, but it's all kind of scheming up for this Jafar versus Archazia battle, really. I don't want to say battle, but duel, rather, I think is a better themed word for it. But not inside the notes, but the lore cards. We don't have time to go into the lore cards here, but I know it was a thing that Dylan was excited about. But Dylan, have you read through all the lore cards? Because we know that's your bread and butter here.
I have, and it's mostly things within the lore cards that we have talked about here in the podcast already. It is mostly just confirming what we already knew for the most part, that the journey through Azerite Sea was to make it to this island, which we now know as Archazia's Island. We know that Archazia is a former Illumineer, or still is an Illumineer, just once was at the Great Illuminary, and she is now training these other Illumineers, Venturo, Shanzi, Martin, which we knew already. We know that the Hidden Ink Caster belonged to her, and she is now learning for the first time within these lore cards that there's a possibility that the two halves of the Hexwell Crown can be put back together.
Interesting.
Then the lore cards, the big thing from the lore cards, I think, is the little hints that they play at discussing past events or something that has happened in the past, and it's kind of setting up a future story past the Reign of Jafar going into Fabled, which we'll talk about that later too.
Yeah, we're scheming up for this big duel, if you will, but again, the lore cards was fun. It's a flip card, if you didn't notice that. You know, you can actually put them together and actually have like a little animation. A lot more than what I thought there was going to be. There's going to be 20, but there's 20 lore cards. We'll save that for later and whatnot.
We said something yesterday at our league tour at our Silt event, and I would like to go ahead and say it before anybody else says it. Anybody else on the internet says it. That way, you know for a fact that it was said here first, because I have not said it or heard it anywhere before. So there are 20 lore cards. We know that out of the 20 lore cards, yes, you have the pieces that make the flip book that tell the story, but on the other side are puzzle pieces. 18 out of the 20 cards make up the 3x3 puzzles. So that leaves 2 cards. Card number 1 and card number 20. And I do. I don't know if anybody can see this, but this is card number 20. And on the back side, you have this picture here. To me, card number 20 looks like it is going to be a extra piece of a secret puzzle that we only have this one piece so far. And we could potentially get other pieces of this puzzle in future sets to build this secret puzzle.
I would have never noticed that looking at I know we talked about it yesterday, but I would have never noticed that at all. I would have been like, oh, cool, a nice little piece of art chucked to the side or whatever. But it looks like there's a lot more to it than what there is. So it's nice to actually get like these, I'm going to say marketing cards, instead of like the marketing cards. We actually get something that is, you know, adding to the story and whatnot. And I actually got this question yesterday. There was somebody inside the shop that we go to, and they've played Lorcana before. I think they more collect it, and they're like, what is Archazia? And I explained that, and they're like, oh, like it's not a Disney IP. I was like, no, like they've opened up the floodgates here. So I don't know. Maybe we'll look back in about 3 sets and be like, Dylan was right. Dylan knew what was up, and then shorted up.
Maybe we'll see in Reign of Jafar.
Maybe, and a continuation to it. Who knows? I don't know. But speaking of Reign of Jafar, kind of moving on down through our list here is before Archazia's Island actually released, we got a silent update to the Ravensberger website for the Reign of Jafar product line, where they not only released pictures of the product, but also announced the dates of the release. I think this is the first time we're seeing this. So again, May 30th is going to be the pre-release. So that's going to be hobby stores and your Disney locations, Disney Springs, Disney Store New York, etc. And then June 6th, 2025 being the actual launch of Reign of Jafar. So but before Archazia's even released, it was about a week or I think a week and a half, or maybe even 2 weeks, they actually updated the website and just kind of like, here's the product, the actual boxes. And to some people, you may look at this and go like, oh, like, it is what it is. But mixed feelings on this. I'll save my thoughts for it later. But here are the products that we have confirmed for Reign of Jafar. So first up, we have the single player decks. nothing too surprising here. So the single player decks, the first one I have pulled up here is actually a Ruby Steel single player deck. This is featuring Mulan and Stitch Abomination. This is if there's another Stitch Abomination card, this would make the second Stitch Abomination card. But we have a Ruby Steel single player deck, and then we also have a Amber Amethyst single player deck featuring, I believe that's what, Tiana and Bruno Madrigal, right? Homie or accountable here? Yeah. So Tiana and Bruno Madrigal here for the single player decks. Nothing too crazy here, but I do want to call this out though. In the last single player decks we had that were hinting to the dual inks, in the center of the product, and maybe it's just more of like a separation art design here, but it was the blue scroll, it was the signals and insignias of the ink colors, but this time it is sand. And I think it's fitting just because it is Reign of Jafar, it's Aladdin, it's sand. Nothing, I'm not really seeing anything too crazy here. Dylan, do you think there's a greater meaning behind the sand, or is it just the art style you think so far?
Not behind the sand, but I think there is some deeper meaning somewhere else within these images. And maybe it's just me, but we did call out, I like to think that we called Dual Link out way before anybody else did.
Yeah.
And I know we just got Dual Link. I know that we got the Vanish ability, which we hardly have any cards for yet, and we're definitely going to see more in Reign of Jafar. We'll talk about that later too. But I think there's a major possibility, as we keep an eye out, as we show these images for these products, that they're going to introduce a new mechanic that has certain glimmers or certain cards, specific cards, that they will now have a ability kind of like locations where you can pay a certain cost, certain ink cost, to attach items to them. And then if they have an item attached to them, their stats will be buffed in some sort of way. Because even like if you look at the Mulan and the Stitch, it's items that we already have within the set. I mean, we already have I can't even remember the name of them right now. Stitch's blasters. We've had it since like set 1 or set 2. Same with Mulan's last rocket. I mean, that's already an item. And then Bruno in the starter deck is wearing this fancy looking jacket that has all kinds of extra like lore logos or story star logos on them. Tiana, I don't really see an item for, but she's about the only one. But if we keep an eye on that, on all of the glimmers that we're about to see, they all have an item attached to them.
So maybe we can have a mechanic. So it sounds like maybe we can have a mechanic where items attached. I think other games do that as well. But good call out. I would have never really saw that. But yeah, you look at this and go, oh, these are items that we have. So again,
I don't think it won't be new items. So other games, they have specific items that you can attach to characters.
Right.
I think that this will be a new card mechanic for specific cards that they have the ability that items can be attached to them for a certain ink cost, which would make older items still viable.
Right.
Maybe we can see something cool where you can swap, kind of like we have songs where you have certain characters, and then how cool it is to have like Hades sing "Let It Go" and just different characters singing songs that aren't from their original IP. We can just have things switched up, and then you can have like Ariel running around with the frying pan.
Yeah, so the benefit, the kind of the prediction on this would be the items themselves would not change, but the characters in their card and their, I don't want to say flavor text, but their ability would be, if an item is attached, they may gain +1 lore, or +1 attack, or something of that nature. You can use that item for free. Who knows? Total wild prediction here. But Dylan calls this out again. Pay attention to the glimmers, because if we skip ahead, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Trove, because I think we get a really nice illustration of this here. So looking at the Illumineer's Trove for, I almost said Archazia's Island, but Reign of Jafar, Same thing. You have Rapunzel. She appears to have some sort of emerald satchel of some nature, some sort of powder, some sort of elixir. Who knows? Jafar, obviously, paint potentially. You can see it on her sleeves underneath her white kind of long sleeve shirt here. You got touches of emerald. So an item maybe potentially. Jafar clearly with the full Hexwell crown. And then paying attention, it was all Minnie Mouse with a shield. I don't recall what specific shield this is. I don't think it's Arendelle, but Minnie is holding a shield. I don't think we have a look.
It looks like an amber.
Yeah, like
the shield. Does it give? It gives amber vibes.
Yeah, definite amber vibes. Clearly, because it is yellow and glowing. We don't have any look at the insides of the content yet, but I would expect this again to have the dividers, some sort of dice, the 8-packs, and the lore counter spinner as well. So we got the Trove. Again, you got Tiana and Bruno on the side, just like with the single player deck. But then also taking a look at let's see, I think the box was up next. So we got the booster box display here for Reign of Jafar. Nothing different from what we've seen, but we do get a better shot of Minnie, though, holding the shield, and I have no idea what kind of item that is. Maybe Dylan knows.
To me, it almost looks like a lightsaber. It's crazy. It's like a flashlight, but then with like a sword or a torch attached to the end of it or glowing out of it.
Yeah, I see that. It's like, rather than it being like a lightsaber, it's like an orb or something. I don't know. It looks like some sort of weapon you get off like World of Warcraft or something like that. Just holding a handle with a rotating orb type thing. But the art on the booster box is Jafar, Rapunzel, Minnie, Bruno, and Tiana on the booster packs as well. Kind of expanding out on the art we saw. Do notice that we have some little critters down here in minis as well. Don't think we have a definitive on if it's just generic or whatnot, but we do have
just
critters.
Generic.
Yeah, just critters. But kind of moving on here, again, the booster box display going to be available for pre-order and pickup. The mats, sleeves, and deck boxes. I'm looking at the various ones here. So the mat, sleeves, and deck boxes, it was about 2 sets ago that they said that they were going to be not necessarily making accessories on the current set, but then going back to some of the fan favorite art and expanding on the accessories. Mm-hmm. So the boxes and mats this time around is actually going to be a Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer from Chapter 1, the first chapter, Amethyst card, notable in Burn decks. It's amazing. Also, the Big Tinkerbell, the Enchanted version specifically. So my wife's already going crazy for this because we got the lore counter, we got the mat, and now we have the sleeves and the deck boxes. And something random, do we know if they've improved the quality of the sleeves at all? Like, I haven't checked any of the newer ones.
I'll be honest. I mean, we love Lorcana, but that's one of our biggest complaints that we've had. So for quite a few sets, I have avoided buying any of the sleeves. I mean, yes, the art is cool, but for viability as we're actually playing, they're not the best quality. So I don't know. Maybe that's something somebody can comment, reach out, and let us know, because I didn't buy any of the sleeves from this set.
No, the last Lorcana sleeves I bought was Flubborn for the Mulan and whatnot. They have improved the deck boxes, though. The deck boxes actually have more hinges on. I say hinges, but rather than just one folding point, they actually kind of properly bend back, so they're reinforced. I love the art, and it's to the point to where I'm not buying these sleeves with just the quality that they are without doing a clear sleeve. I think John does something with his, maybe the puppy sleeves, maybe, or you have an outer sleeve.
I have an outer sleeve on them. I double sleeve them. That's why it's a 60 card deck, but it looks like it's huge. If you had small hands, you could not. Yeah,
it looks like a puppy deck.
Yeah, it looks like a puppy deck. You couldn't, if you had small hands, you could not shuffle it. It's like my wife can't shuffle the cards when they're double sleeved. But I haven't bought any of the Lorcana ones either because I know they just kind of fall apart. So
yeah. They peel off. The sleeve itself is fine, but the art on the back, like if you're looking at the Mickey Mouse and the Tinkerbell here, it the art just starts to flail off. It starts to peel. It's just not, especially if you're using them quite a bit. And that's why I'm afraid to break out my puppy sleeves. Is like I like it. I like that it was a League exclusive, and which we'll talk about League in the next episode. But that's why I haven't touched them. I haven't got them out of the plastic that they're in because I don't want to ruin them. And I'm gonna have to get me some outer sleeves here. But I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. Let us know in the comments or on whichever platform you're watching on. But then the playmats this set is actually going to be it's going to feature Rescue Rangers, which is, I believe we just got one card with this art. It was the Rescue Rangers Away, I believe the art. Something like that. Yeah, so Rescue Rangers, you got Chip, Dale, the whole crew on the plane here, and then also you have a Hades. I believe this was the double dealer card featuring Megra there to the left and to the right. So the playmats again, probably one of my favorite products. I'm not a playmat person, but I know there's people that love their playmats. So I think these are pretty good options here. They're not going to be able to make an official playmat for every art. Like I wish I had a brave little Taylor Lorcana mat. Yeah, there's other means of getting them, and we're not going to talk about that here. But people do Etsy, and they do make their own and whatnot. So thoughts on the selections this go around? I'm happy with them. I'm happy with them. Will I get them? Probably not. But what do we think about the selections here?
So the sleeves of the deck box are absolutely perfect. I think those are two selections with the Sorcerer Mickey and the Giant Tink that anybody would be happy with. And the fact that we already have the playmat for Tink as well, so you can have like the full accessory kit.
Yeah.
Do we have a Sorcerer Mickey mat yet?
We do not. The only Mickey mat we have is the Steamboat Willie one.
Gotcha. I'll be honest, the Rescue Ranger mat surprises me a little bit. The art is great, and I think that's a fan service mat, to be honest. There's so many different selections that the art would have been better, but this is truly a fan service to all the Rescue Ranger fans and all of like the what was it, the Disney Afternoon, like all the Disney Afternoon fans with like DuckTales and stuff. But that Hades mat is fantastic. Beautiful. It looks great. I can see anybody running Emerald decks playing with it. Like, just, it looks so good. I would want my dice and everything to just match it.
Tell me you're playing Emerald without telling me you're playing Emerald. And just rock up with the Hades double dealer.
Yeah, you lay that down. You know exactly what they're playing.
That, absolutely. Good selection art-wise, but again, just the sleeves just aren't there with the quality. The last product, though, before we kind of get into our big, launch weekend of Archazia's thing, is going to be a product that I'm probably most excited for. Is we have our second Illumineer's quest for Disney Lorcana being Palace Heist. As we expected, we kind of made that prediction a long time ago. Whenever Ursula's Return came out, and Ursula was our big villain, we did have Illumineer's Quest Deep Trouble, where, spoiler, we fought for the half of the Hexwall crown. And now we are getting our second Illumineer's Quest called Palace Heist. The art on this is incredible. You have your three Illumineers from the story in the bottom right-hand corner. You have Archazia's palace and this big illusion of Jafar just kind of like hanging out over top. It says, Jafar has taken over, team up to defeat him. For those who aren't necessarily familiar with this product, this is a co-op product. So basically, I believe it can range anywhere from one player. What did Illumineer's Quest top out? Deep Trouble was like, what, 4, I think? Up to 4 players? I could be wrong.
Think so.
Yeah, up to 4
maybe
players.
6, but...
Yeah, maybe 6. But basically, we don't know anything about what's going to take place in this. But what the product was like in Ursula's Return was you actually faced Ursula in a game of Lorcana, Ursula had her own deck, her own rules, and there was instructions to guide you how to drive Ursula. It was a very just autonomous thing where Ursula drew every turn, she did her actions in a particular order, and then you played your turn to get to your target lore count. So I would expect this to operate very similar. Will all the mechanics be the same from Deep Trouble? Probably not. I'd say they're probably gonna shake things up a little bit with maybe how the Illumineer's Quest actually functions now that this is our second product. But looking on the side here, the very side of the box, you gotta have to tilt your head a little bit. It looks like we do have the Illumineers in the far right, and I can't make out what's in the bottom left. It looks like just the snake, I believe. Cobra. Yeah, giant cobra. That's right. Inside the bottom left here. I'm a big fan of this product. I like the co-op. It's unfortunate, just being real. You know, I bought Ursula's Return. My wife and I beat Ursula, and we haven't revisited it. There's different difficulty levels, but I'm very happy that this will definitely continue on the story here. But yeah, I'm excited for it. You know, Dylan is knowing that you bought Ursula's Return. Is this going to be another pickup for you all? It's going to be for us just because we're I'm the collectors and whatnot. But I'm curious what they changed from this, if anything, from Deep Trouble.
Yeah, they're definitely going to make changes. That's something I thought about too. Is we see where they're going and how this is. They have their own algorithm, per se, of what they're going to release and how they're going to release it. And it seems like almost every 4 sets, we're going to have this big boss battle, and they're going to have to make each one unique in their own way. They can't just all be the same. And if you want a couple of more details about this, just looking at like the product list of things that this game actually includes, it has 5 lore tracker tokens, so maybe it is 4-player co-op and then 1 token to keep track of Jafars. Again, you can use the Lorcana companion app as well, I'm sure, because we have that tracker or for Ursula's as well.
Right.
It comes with a oversized Jafar card on the inside.
Ooh,
and then I see that it has 2 cards featuring 4 battlegrounds. Again, we'll get more details later on, but that's something different that wasn't necessarily part of Ursula's. 4 different battlegrounds.
We had different difficulties with Ursula's, but not battlegrounds.
True. Maybe that's it. Maybe the battlegrounds will be the different difficulties, and then depending on which battleground you're in, it'll change things. It comes with 2 60-card player decks. And you'll also have a 50-card Jafar scenario deck, and your 1 victory card that will be hidden and sealed, which, story-wise, with Ursula's, spoiler alert for anybody who has not beat Ursula's or has not picked up the product, but at the end, after you beat Ursula, you get 1 pack. It was a golden pack that you get to open to see what this victory card was, and it was such a mysterious card, and the Lorcana community did such a good job keeping it a secret and not spreading it around, but it turned out to be the Hexwell Crown, which the story has continued to follow all the way up until now. So I'm super excited to see what that will be, because whatever is in that, whether it be an item or whatever it is, that's going to be the next card that sets up future sets of Lorcana. But the most important thing about this entire Palace Heist that not a lot of people are talking about is it comes in its own box.
Yep.
Huge, because if you bought Ursula's and you opened Ursula's and you opened the packaging, it was all loose. You had no way of storing it.
Right. Yeah. It was like you opened the box and it was one and done. Like you couldn't reseal it.
Yeah. Like I think ours is sitting in a Trove somewhere, and a lot of people are doing that. Just like they try to keep it in a Trove. So the fact that Ravensberger heard that complaint and stepped up and put it all inside of its own box as if it was a board game.
Like Gateway. You know.
Like Gateway.
Yeah. I would have
like Villainous.
You like Villainous, yeah. No, now that you mentioned that, I love it because like once you opened up Deep Trouble, that was it. Like it was adhesive sealed on the side. You opened it, everything was loose, and that was it. So I'm excited that now this will earn its place on our board game shelf and where the board games are. So I'm excited to see that. Yeah, that's a good call out. So no, but Reign of Jafar, kind of we're going to be moving on to our big topics, but again, we talked a little bit more about Reign of Jafar inside an article that Dylan had written over on the website. So be sure to check that out at theinktable.com for the Reign of Jafar product article. We talk about the products, kind of like what we did here, but maybe get a little bit more in depth here with Dylan and whatnot. But
yeah, a little more deeper, a lot more details whenever it comes to the glimmers.
But the one thing I did want, the main thing I want to discuss with this though is, I think I'm very excited for Reign of Jafar. I'm very excited for Archazia's Island. Jafar is one of my favorite villains personally, so I'm really excited for that set just because he's one of my favorite villains. But I have mixed feelings around the fact that they released these products, at least the images of these products, before Archazia's even released. And I don't know if it's just me wanting to kind of like be present in the moment with a set, but we now know, we had Archazia's Island coming up, we have Reign of Jafar coming up, we have Fable coming up, and we know we have Pocahontas and Pixar coming out in the future. There's a part of me that I was excited to see this, but I was like, Archazia's isn't even out yet. And I kind of just for a moment was like, it would have been really nice to maybe get into Archazia's Island a little bit, enjoy the set a little bit without constantly thinking about the next set. So personally, that set a little weird with me. I know 2 episodes ago we were talking about the lack of information. We still don't have a date for Worlds, by the way. And it's going to be a continuous thing. Like I'm going to make this a chapter in the YouTube video being like, we don't have a date for Worlds yet. But at one point we were kind of not frustrated, but the community as a whole was kind of like, what's happening, And then it just seemed like we got this barrage of information. And while I appreciate that, it kind of felt a little funny having these images and products over here getting attention, but then while Archazia's was a week away. Am I the only one who felt like that, or is that just a me thing?
I feel it in a sense. It does feel like a lot, and I hope that they do slow down. But I hope that this is just a one-off between Archazia's and Jafar. Yeah, they didn't need to release all the product information and show us everything that they did, but Jafar is present within Archazia's, within the story, within the art. I mean, you look at that Jafar Enchanted card. We already know that Jafar is putting the Hexbow crown back together in this set.
Yep.
Multiple cards that show him doing so. He's already wearing the Hexbow crown, and we already see him take over Archazia's Island. So that all happens within this set. So the two are so closely tied together that I don't see anything wrong with them sharing information. Yeah, it may have been much to reveal all the products, but it's fine this one time. Let's slow down. Take a breath.
It's like next thing you know, Fable's going to be out. And, I think it goes back to kind of what we talked about, I think 2 episodes ago. People are hungry for Lorcana. And that's a good thing. Yeah. People, every weekend, people are playing at weekly play and organized play. And people are hungry for Lorcana. We just had a little bit of a drought, and we were kind of sucking up all the water they were giving us. And then all of a sudden, it was too much water. And then it kind of like, I don't know, made our tummies hurt, I guess. I don't know. Like it kind of got a lot in a sense. But no, it does kind of make sense because Jafar's present. So it's like, give us a little something. At least they didn't do card reveals. Start showing those. If they would have done card reveals, that would have been a lot different story. So on one hand, yeah, like I am okay with it, but there was a part of me that was kind of like little too soon. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but again, we talk more in depth about Reign of Jafar as we get more news around card reveals. I wouldn't expect any card reveals to happen for at least a month and a half, 2 months now. I would say probably whenever we get into April territory, like late April, maybe is just my total guess. But we'll cover all that on all of our socials, all of our platforms as we get more news. But it's exciting. Jafar, it's my favorite villain. I'm excited to see what they learned from the last Illumineer's quest to see where we kind of move on to. But that's all we got for Reign of Jafar today. But we'll have more in the future here. But Dylan, it was a busy weekend, wasn't it?
It's been a long weekend. Like, this is kind of the weekend to our weekend almost. We finished this and we can finally take a breath. But we had 2 different sealed events. On top of the 2 different sealed events, I know that my household bought a Trove that we've already opened. I believe you've bought a box and you've already opened it.
1 box and
Plus,
a Trove. Yep. That's our starting
plus
point.
a few extra packs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
extra packs,
Plus a few extra packs that we've won through sealed events or launch events, and just a couple extra packs that we've bought here or there. Out of those packs, what are your thoughts on the things that you've pulled? And is there anything that has jumped right out? You're proud that you pulled any legendaries, any enchanteds? What's going on?
Yeah, so no enchanteds, which again, it's important to remind folks that enchanteds are not guaranteed. In a case, in a box, it is random. It is purely random. We don't collect enchanteds per se, but I like to have at least 1 from each set to commemorate the set. Azurite Sea was the first set since the first chapter, which we have not pulled an enchanted. So nothing too crazy in terms of pulls. We did pull 2 Tamatoas though, which as of this morning was a $60 card, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's it is what it is. And that gets into a whole economics thing, but there's a few good pulls here. But before we get to the specific cards, what about the hollows? Like
they're great, right?
They're phenomenal. Like I absolutely, which I love the foiling on these. I think it kind of went through 2 ways. Like we had our initial foiling at the beginning, but then when did they start doing this type of foiling? Was it with the last League promo sets they started doing this? Because I think the foiling was still the same, but then we noticed that the League promos were kind of consistent with what we got in Archasias. I don't know when they started doing it.
It's a little different there.
Yeah, a little bit different.
It may have been those League promos.
Yeah. But the hollows are phenomenal. And I believe John pointed this out, but very similar to the Japanese card foilings that we have here. Like, I think they're very smooth. I think they're even more shinier than what they were. So, there's a lot of cards. And Tamatoa, yeah. It's just channeling my inner Tamatoa. It'd be nice if we could go back and put this foiling on previous set cards, just because some would just pop entirely here. But
it makes it so much easier to read the attack and willpower, like the strength and willpower. Yes. Now it was kind of hard to notice in previous foiling.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think I've seen a foil legendary, so I'm curious to see that too, because previous foils, since they've introduced the embossed look or the raised look, some of those foil legendaries, you couldn't really tell that they were foils.
So I did pull a foil legendary queen, and it is gorgeous. I played John against it, and I got the effect off twice. Sorry, John. No, it's beautiful. It's like the embossed look. It's almost like the texture. It's just a deeper. It's such a. There's so much depth to it with the embossed look, and it's just darker. Granted, the queen card is a darker tone card to begin with, because it is dark greens with the forest. It is dark purples with her dress. They're beautiful. I love what they've done with the foiling this set on the hollows. Like it's
the foiling is totally noticeable on the legendaries now.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It was a little bit noticeable, but it was really hard. But they are noticeable with the legendaries now.
Good.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. But again, we went to 2 sealed events, just like with Azurite Sea. Some spotlight cards. Dylan, starting with you, what are some cards that you're kind of excited to see about? maybe you pull, maybe you played with. We'll talk about the MVP cards, but what are some of your spotlight cards you got on your short list of your pulls for the weekend?
I think it may have been after you left League yesterday. My son, he actually pulled the Donald Duck, which was
I
super
didn't
exciting.
pull that. Yeah.
You did? Yeah, so
Yeah.
he pulled that and the Mickey Mouse, the 2-cost Mickey Mouse Legendary.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that was in the same pack or what happened, or like,
I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was 2 different
that was
packs.
cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. 2 really fun, amazing cards this set.
But for me personally, instead of talking about legendaries or enchanteds, which we also have not pulled yet, I wanted to spotlight 2 cards from this set that, as somebody who enjoys the lore and looking into future sets, these really popped off, and I was excited not only to pull these, but just to see them. I think this first one you even played against me.
Mm-hmm.
So it is Treasure Guardian, Foreboding Sentry. This is a 4-cost inkable amethyst card. It is a 3/3 that quests for 2. And the flavor text reads, "At last, after all my years of searching." And that is Jafar saying that. So it is as if Jafar has finally found the Treasure Guardian. And as we got this new Vanish ability that we really haven't seen yet, this card stands out because it plays and works alongside that Vanish ability or illusion characters. It says, when you play this character, if you have an illusion character in play, you may draw a card. So, very interesting that you were talking about with the single player decks earlier in Reign of Jafar, all of that sand, and we see Jafar playing with that sand. And in this image, going around the Treasure Guardian, you can see swirling sand all around him. And within that sand are illusions or characters from Latin. 2 of which, Iago and Raja, we already have illusion cards of. But the Magic Carpet and Abu, although they're also just Aladdin cards, I think that it's almost confirmed at this point, just by looking at this card, that we will have an illusion Abu and an illusion Magic Carpet later on in Reign of Jafar. Hopefully an illusion Genie.
Maybe. I'm with you on this one. I think the fact that there's 4 additional characters, all of which are of that illusion visual-esque style here. You know, we have Raja, we have Iago, but yeah, I think this is this if it doesn't happen, I would be more concerned, if you will. But yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing into the future with with Abu rather, and the Magic Carpet. No, and it makes me think about like what their abilities, because we see like Raja, or we see the Treasure Guardian, for example, play into the illusions. We see the Jafar play into the illusions. I don't think Iago has any other additional abilities other than just being a beefy boy. Same with Raja.
He is an illusion.
He's an illusion, but no like abilities or anything like that, I don't think.
Iago's evasive, but I mean,
Evasive,
nothing
yeah.
else.
So maybe this is, again, we talked about this in the last episode with the illusions being a little bit more powerful with their evasiveness and being targeted. They're banished. So I'm curious to see where on the curve we're going to see Abu and the Carpet here. But again, I would have never. Again, art. We see these cards. We saw this card all weekend, and we're like, wait a second. You know, we have 2 other characters here. I love it. No, I think I'm sure it's going to happen. I'll say that.
Just the foreshadowing that they put into the art and these sets way beforehand. Which brings us to the second card that I want to spotlight, which I know is a big favorite of yours, and I think this may have been like one of the first cards that you pulled during launch weekend. And it is a card that we previously talked about. But it is Merlin Clever Clairvoyant. It is a Blurple card. It is a dual ink Amethyst Sapphire 1-drop inkable. He is a 0/1. A rare card that quests for 1. And he has the ability, let's try to say this again, Prestidigitonium. Think I got it that time.
We got it.
Whenever this character quests, name a card. Then reveal the top card of your deck. If it's the name card, put it into your inkwell face down and exerted. Otherwise, put it on the top of your deck. This card was exciting to see in person because this is just something that we like. We like Merlin, and we had previously talked about this card, and we could get a better look at that choo-choo train on the card that we previously talked about too. So I think it was in the last podcast episode we looked at this, and I was like, wait a minute, is that train possibly from a Disney park? To me, this looks like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad train. We looked into it and we saw quite a few differences between Big Thunder Mountain and this train here. But then it was on our new Facebook page that we were scrolling or whatever, and we were in one of the Lorcana groups, and we saw that somebody had posted about this card and posted an image of a train next to it, and they were like, hey, wait a minute, is this the same train? And spot on. I mean, they were correct. And shout out to BR Quest, huge supporter of the show, who has been following and listening since probably our first or second episode, because I think they were the first one after we had talked about it to kind of point out that train.
Oh, yeah.
And looking into it a little further, we can probably now confirm that that train is the Disneyland Railroad or Disney World Railroad, whichever you like. They're kind of the same thing. And I don't know, maybe John can pull that image up with that train. But just to give a little backstory or a little background, there are multiple train cars that have been used throughout the Disney Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
The art that you're seeing in particular on both the card and that image of the train is the very first one from 1955 that WED Enterprises, so Walt Disney Imagineering, actually was the builder of that train. And it is the CK Holiday. And it entered service on July 17th, 1955, and it was designed to resemble Walt Disney's miniature Lily Belle locomotive.
I love that. And I think this is also the first Disneyland / Disney World reference we have in Lorcana, I think.
And I think that it's a little bit of a debate now whether this is just a Easter egg or if, again, we are seeing into the future with Merlin's clever clairvoyance, and this is something that we are going to see much, much later on. Maybe not much, but later on within the story of Lorcana, maybe it will be present. I have a feeling, just a gut feeling, looking at this card, that this has something to do with Fabled. So, kind of a juxtaposition there with Merlin being clairvoyant and being able to see into the future, but Fabled possibly telling a story that takes place in the past. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it being a reference to Fabled. Again, Fabled's supposed to, explore these older stories. We kind of see that from the art of Fabled, and I think the fact that this is a clear reference to the CK Holiday, old school Disneyland / World train here. Yeah, it was a little too specific because I'm like, granted, we play this game in the world of Lorcana, and it's like a train has entered the chat. It's like there has to be a deeper meaning to this train here. But anyway, I love it, and I do think we have the pronunciation.
It's just been Easter egg.
Yeah,
we got it for sure.
It could be nothing, but at least a fun little Easter egg here. So I like it.
What about you, Preston? What are some of your spotlight cards?
Yeah, so I put a little bit more thought into the MVP cards, which is going to be our last segment here. But there's two that I wanted to kind of highlight here for spotlight cards. Not necessarily because of like their play in sealed, for example, but kind of what I think we're going to see in the future a little bit. The first one here is going to be the Belle Apprentice Inventor. It is a Sapphire card, 3-drop inkable, 3/3 questing for 1. The ability of What a Mess. During your turn, you may banish a chosen item of yours to play this character for free. Again, I know that we don't talk a whole lot about, super constructive competitiveness here. This card will be the card that keeps me up at night. I've seen over the weekend a lot of people try to stick this card in the decks that have been established, but also I'm seeing Blurple lists run this card and 4 popsicles in hopes to get her out. And I'm like, interesting. So I think, is it the most powerful card in the set? No. But I think it's one that has opened up a little bit of Pandora's box a little bit. Just because if you have the ability to play something for free on turn 2 along with something else, that's pretty powerful. I can't think of a whole lot of turn 2s that allow you to play 2 characters unless you're playing like hyper aggro. But I don't know. This is one that is going to help decks, but then it's also almost like a trap card. Because I see a lot of folks kind of bending over backwards trying to squeeze her in with 4 popsicles and then trying to do that. So I don't know. It's one that I am not necessarily like bending over backwards for, but it's one that I've seen a lot of discussion on recently. So I don't know.
It's definitely it's a game changer card for sure.
Yes.
In both the way that you're talking about, because now you have people who are like, okay, how can I make this work in my Blurple deck or my Sapphire Ruby deck or whatever? But then we also have the opposite of that, of people looking at it and saying, okay, what do I run now in my deck to make sure that I can counter this Belle? Whether it's that 1-drop Captain Hook with Challenger or the Amethyst Rafiki with Challenger, who's a 1-drop. You got to have something now, and she'll always be there in the back of people's minds.
Yeah. Because now we have a lot of Sapphire decks. We have Blurple, Ruby Sapphire, we have Amethyst, not Amethyst, but Steel Sapphire, and now we have Emerald Sapphire. So good variety of decks. And again, I know this really isn't the podcast for it, but it's the one card that I think a lot of people are trying to make a staple out of. And I'm thinking, interesting. Like I don't know. Like jury's still out on this a little bit. You know, it's amazing how it went from Sapphire Coil freaking out about to something like Belle. And yeah, so I don't know. John, what's your thoughts?
Question from the peanut gallery.
You're not the peanut gallery, but go for it.
Okay.
You're more than that, my friend.
So somebody that doesn't run items, there's the tool that she's holding in her hand in this picture. It's a 1-drop Sapphire card. I forget the name of it. Now,
the unconventional tool.
So here's my question: as somebody who does not run very many items and banish them, you know, I run usually Steel Song or something like that. So yeah, I have items, but I don't banish items. If I play that on turn 1, I can banish that immediately and play her on turn 1 for free, right? If she's in my hand. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So if you're running a song deck or a deck that has songs in it like Let the Storm Rage On or something like that, that you could end up potentially her singing on turn 2, that's pretty big.
Yeah. It's a threat. And it's funny because I think back to it and I go, you know, we're looking for dual inks to shake things up and change how people play. And right now, this Belle is the one card that has people looking at their decks, to anything that runs Sapphire, and going, how can I get her out? How can she fit into my deck? And John, correct me there. It doesn't have to be turn 2. You know, just the way that I think about this, I think, okay, you play a popsicle, you pass turn, and then you banish it next turn. No, it could be turn 1.
So to better answer your question a little bit, Unconventional Tool is a Ruby card. It's not a Sapphire item.
Okay,
so
yeah,
for Unconventional Tool, but again, it can be any 1-drop card. It doesn't necessarily have to be Unconventional Tool. Unconventional Tool just reads that when this item is banished, you pay 2 less for the next item you play this turn. So you could, in a Ruby Sapphire, play Unconventional Tool turn 1, banish it, play Belle for free on turn 1, and pay 2 less for the next item that you play, so you can still turn around and play another item on that same turn 1. But it works the same in Sapphire Steel with Fortisphere, that is a 1-drop item, or just any Sapphire deck in general with the Pawsicle, because you can turn 1 play that item, draw a card off of Fortisphere or Pawsicle, banish it, using Belle's effect to play a 3-cost character for free on turn 1. Which goes back to the point of now people have to think about what can I do turn 1 to possibly challenge this Belle who's going to be present there. Whether it's a Toby who hits for 3, or something with Reckless that's going to hit pretty hard, or something with Challenger that's going to hit a little hard.
Yeah. No, it makes you think differently. Like the way you combat Sapphire deck. So I don't know. Again, we're just 3 days into this, and this is one of the more discussed cards that I think I've seen, and yeah, now it makes sense why Belle is dual ink in her Ruby Sapphire and whatnot with the unconventional tool. So I actually had to Google unconventional tool because again we saw it 50 times this weekend, but then we actually go, hold on a second, let's read that. So I don't know, just some initial thoughts there. The second card I did want to kind of highlight here for the spotlight cards here, just kind of future thinking. I kind of woke up this morning, it was just like thinking about all the different possibilities. But my second spotlight card that I think isn't necessarily going to be standout, but could maybe determine the direction of a particular deck, sure. But Anna, Icebreaker, a 4-drop inkable 2/3, questing for 2 with support ability of Winter Ambush. When you play this character, chosen opposing character can't ready at the start of the next turn. This isn't a new ability or new function we've seen. We've seen the Elsa, we see the Genie, and whenever I thought about Blurple, I was thinking about how Blurple plays now versus how I've tried Blurple in the past. And I think John and Dylan remember the era of Preston's Blurple Genie deck that was very left field, and I don't think anyone inside any of our communities were really running that card. But this is just me kind of making a little future prediction that I think the way that Blurple plays now, I think it's going to be different. And we'll talk more about that in the next episode, but I think this is going to at least maybe open up another direction for Blurple to go, potentially. I don't know. I don't know yet. But I don't know. Just whenever I was looking at the card reveals and pulling the cards, I noticed that a lot of these Blurple cards took a different route than the way the deck currently plays, as to where we saw Ruby Sapphire dual link cards lean into the way they currently play. And same with like Emerald Sapphire, for example. So I don't know. We'll cook with it a little bit, but also the art's just fun. I like to know what she's throwing a snowball at, because I don't think we have a character or a glimmer or anything like that of this little robot.
So,
but maybe
you
Dylan
see these robots. Yeah, you see these robots all the way through Archazia's, like with the art in a lot of these different cards. They're just obstacle courses, essentially, training dummies to an extent, just automatons that Archazia has built throughout their palace to help train the Glimmers and the Illumineers.
Interesting. I love that. I would have never thought anything about it, but this is the one card where I'm like, what is she fighting here? So no, that makes sense that Archazia's prepping for Jafar and whatnot, training the Illumineers on the dual links and whatnot. So I don't know. This is a fun little part.
There's a Blurple Elsa card that also connects to this on the other side, like where you connect the two. Yeah. I think there's some robots in that too. Yeah, it's a continuation between Anna and Elsa.
I never even noticed that, but I don't know. Just kind of two. I know we have this label as spotlight cards, but it's kind of two cards that I'm thinking, like that's going a different direction to what I thought it was going. So I don't know. Leave it. Dylan with the lore and the Easter eggs, and Preston with the wait a second, this doesn't really match the way these decks play right now, and we see a different door open up here. So I don't know. Well, only time will tell. I think we're still too early on, but we'll see. But speaking of the sealed events, I know we've been to 2. Again, some people, it's basically the whole weekend. Like, I feel like this is like the longest weekend because we usually play Lorcana on Saturday during our organized play, but the sister store or the store we go to has their launch event on Friday. So I woke up Saturday morning thinking Sunday because Lorcana's already done for the week. So it makes for a long weekend. But sealed events. By the time this is going up, all sealed launch events, pack rush events should be over. So we hope you had a lot of fun at your events, at your shops, with your friends. And even if you didn't go to a local store, I know plenty of people that just went out, bought product, and came home and cracked open packs and just played. So whatever this weekend looked like for you, I hope it was a fun weekend because Dylan and I have said it many times over. This is probably the most fun weekend in an entire set release. It's the unknown.
Yeah.
We have so much fun. My wife and I enjoy playing the cards. That's actually what she's doing right now. Is I've cataloged the cards. She's organizing the cards while we're doing this, and we're gonna do a little bit of deck building tonight. And Dylan has turned into a family affair for you all. You know, your son's playing it and is doing a phenomenal job at it, to say the least. You know, like father, like son, I guess. But the sealed events are done. But we're going to talk about our MVP cards, but just kind of want to talk generally about the weekend. Now that we are exiting the weekend, we're getting ready to go back to work and school or whatnot, and first weekend of organized play next weekend. But we'll talk more about the organized play kit instructions in the next episode. But something did differ with Ravensberger's recommendation this set whenever it came to launch events. Previously, and typically, I would say, I don't know, I don't pay attention to other stores' Facebook events, but I would assume that sealed or draft is probably the most common launch format. I don't look at other stores, but what do you all see? Is that pretty consistent with what we see with game shops across the country and whatnot?
Up until this set, yes, that was the case.
Yeah.
At launch events for Lorcana, I know it wasn't the first chapter, but the Rise of the Floodborn, we did a normal draft where you open a pack, take a card, pass it clockwise or counterclockwise, and then eventually everybody picks a card from that same deck.
Yeah.
And then we switched it up and it became sealed, where you open 6 packs, you get to keep all the cards from those 6 packs, and then you build a deck, 40 card minimum, no ink restrictions, no restriction on the number of cards that you can play, which again was different this set for the first time.
Yep, because we had a card, the Glass Slipper, which restricts you to 2 in your deck. So it's my most. I'm not a big fan of draft. I think Dylan likes draft a little bit more than I do, but I love sealed. I love sealed. It's a really no stress environment. Fun. Yeah, like draft was fun, but I feel like just people were passing on cards that they didn't think were going to be that powerful, and you know, I think it just takes a lot of the stress out of it. Is you get your 6 packs and you build. Apologies. But Dylan, why don't you talk about Pack Rush real quick and the change in the organized play here?
Yeah, so Ravensberger for the first time, for whatever reason, they have really been pushing Pack Rush, which I've seen work in some circumstances, but it's just different. I know that we just had the Pack Rush for Valentine's Day as a special event that was free for anybody to play, and that was awesome that they did that. But now they're recommending that LGS has actually used Pack Rush for their launch events, which may make things quicker because we see that some of our launch events are lasting hours on end, depending on how you play, depending on how many rounds it is. I mean, it's new cards. People are playing slower because you're trying to learn what the new cards are together as a group. Sometimes it's best 2 out of 3. Sometimes it's best of 1. I do want to shout out one particular store in general on what I saw that they did, and I sent it to our group.
Such a great job with it.
Because we're not necessarily fans of using Pack Rush at launch, and I think that's just because we are such big fans of Sealed in the way that it works. But we were when we read all that Ravensberger was pushing Pack Rush onto launch events, we were like, I don't know how I feel about that. This store, if every store could do it the way this one did, forget the name of it, but they not only did Pack Rush, you still got your 6 packs, But you split those 6 packs up between your 3 rounds, and your 3 rounds you would use 2 of your packs, and that would be the first time that you were opening them to play Pack Rush. When you entered that store and you signed up, they put you randomly on one team, either Team Aristocats, Team Bolt, or Team Lady and the Tramp, to go along with the pets and the theme. They also took the time to build a board, almost like a board game, like almost like a Candyland type track. And then as you played your games, or you played your rounds, and you turned in the results, depending on what team you were in, your team earned points, and your character would move along that track in attempt to be the first team to make it to Archazia's island, or be the first pet to make it to Archazia's island. So not only was it a really cool implementation of Pack Rush, it was very community driven, which we absolutely love. And the LGS clearly knew the story within Lorcana, and it showed that they cared about Lorcana, which is kind of hard to do because there's so many different trading card games that LGSs deal with. To take the time just for one launch event for a game, instead of just saying, hey, we're doing Sealed or we're doing Pack Rush, to put this much effort into it was awesome. And then if you happen to be part of the team that made it to Archazia's first, then you were automatically put into kind of like a raffle where they would randomly select one person that was part of that team, and you won a free box of Archazia's.
That's really fun. That's such a unique way to do a set release. And I think it's important to note that what Ravensberger puts in their OP kits are recommendations. Stores can do whatever they want, and this store went above and beyond to do it here. And I think John has a note here.
Yeah, that was Four Horsemen Comics and Games in Morgantown. They're up in the mall, up from the university. I can't remember the owner's name. Mike. I've talked with him before anyway when product was hard to get and traveling and stuff. They literally have a store in the mall. It is humongous.
Oh, wow.
They can seat a lot of people because they have a huge Lorcana community up there, especially with WU and the surrounding areas, and you get people from Pennsylvania that come down and stuff like that. So they have a big community up there. They can do that's a really cool group of guys. They're really cool.
Yeah. Four Horsemen, Morgantown, West Virginia, of all places to go above and beyond and do something cool in a set release. But no,
it's make my way out there sometime.
Yeah, no, I feel bad because granted, I was driving back at 2 a.m. and whatnot, but I'm like, darn it, I have to. Next time I'm up that way, I have to check them out. But no, so Ravensberger officially in the OP kit did make the Pack Rush recommendation for Sealed and whatnot. So again, just like Dylan mentioned, I'm not the biggest fan of that for a Sealed event, or for a launch event rather. I would like to get a little bit more product and get a little bit more inventory and whatnot. So I'm always gonna hope that our store that we frequent and is our home store, I hope they continue to do Sealed just because it is fun. But even the owner went into the Discord chat, was like, we might even do this like next weekend or something like that, like in between Constructed or something like that. So it was kind of interesting to see Ravensburger kind of double down on the Pack Rush, because they did the Valentine's Day event, and then now it's the official recommendation in a sense. So I don't know. We'll see. And sorry, hopefully my mic's being muted or whatnot. I kind of got into a coughing fit, so I was like, take it away, Dylan. So the West Virginia crud is going around. John and I both have it, had it, and now there's like a month-long cough. Who knows? But before we get into the MVP cards, though, overall experience compared to Sealed events. I'll kick this off by saying I thought this was one of the more challenging Sealed events that I have participated in. And I participated in every single one since Rise of the Floodborn. I had a little bit of a hard time, trying to deck build. There were a few standout items, and it was hard to get a grasp on the dual inks, but a little bit more challenging. Maybe that was just with the characters. I don't know. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, and it seemed like this set in particular, we've talked about it. We love the art, we love everything about Archazia's, but a lot of these cards and their abilities and their effects aren't necessarily cohesive. We look back to Azurite Sea, we see all the pirates working together. We see the inventors working together. Yeah, you have puppies and stuff in this set, and a lot of allies. But a lot of these cards and their abilities are kind of filler cards that are going to play in and work with cards that we've gotten in the past. So playing in a sealed event where you're only using cards from this set, unless you have those previous cards, even using like Pepper and Pongo and Perdita, we don't really have all of those other puppies that we previously had. We only really have a handful of them here. So, and then
Nobody would
there
ship
wasn't a lot.
on Thunderbolt, like no one was
Right.
really pulling that off. So
One thing I did notice is there wasn't a lot of removal. It's
removal
fantastic that
card.
they added moving damage, but there was not a lot of removal at all in this set.
I think there's just one card, and that was out of order, and that was the 7 inkable.
7 cost card.
Yeah.
Unless you found other unique ways to do it.
Yeah. Everyone played really well this weekend too. Like I remember a game yesterday with one of our regulars, Matt. I didn't get a character to play until turn 3. And we held each other at bay. Actually ended up ink geysering, and that blew everything up. It was a long game, but it was everyone played really well this weekend. There's a lot of really standout games, and we did what we do best, which is we play Lorcana hard and fair in a sense, playing with the restrictions. But I found myself doing the Dylan, and I say that because I found myself leaning more on items this set than what I did in previous sets. Particularly the trading staff, which I don't have in some of my MVP cards, but I had to rely on other cards like trading staff to buff my other characters and do that. But I thought it was a little bit more challenging, just like Dylan mentioned. With Azurite Sea, we got all pirates, right? And some people were able to make pirate archetypes. But not only that, but evasive was also kind of interesting this go around as well. Very few evasive cards, and the Emerald Coil, which granted evasive.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me felt like there was a decent amount of evasive. The first day, I definitely
Maybe I
had a
just didn't
lot.
see any.
And then at the second launch event, I only had a handful. And then there were some people that were, oh my gosh, this, if you want to talk about a Duel Link card that I think is going to make an impact, the Emerald Ruby Fidget.
Yep.
I know you've ran Fidget in the past, but this guy has evasive, and when he quests, he gives another character evasive, plus he quests for 2.
It's a lot. Especially
pretty
in
good
field.
card. He was hard to counter.
Yeah, definitely hard to combat, because evasive in general is just hard in limited format anyway. But yeah, a lot of, and ironically, these are cards that are not in our MVP cards here. But kind of last little bit here before we jump into our Disney trivia. Let's round things out. We've talked about this weekend. Let's talk about some of the MVP cards from our events this weekend. I'll kick things off, and then we'll have Dylan do his. But mine, I had 2. The first one is going to be Bagheera, which is the Guardian Tiger. This is one of those legendary cards, and a 5-drop inkable 4/3 questing for 2 with Bodyguard. The ability, You've Got to Be Brave, which is during an opponent's turn. When this character is banished, deal 2 damage to each opposing character. I wasn't too excited at first whenever I got this character, but John, how did Bagheera go for you in our game?
I don't remember, other than I had nothing that could take him out, because all I had was small cards.
So you were able to take Bagheera out.
Was I? See, I don't even remember. It was so late. I was
It's so late.
tired.
It was like 10 p.m. at that
It was
point.
really late.
It was really late, but the in limited, being able to deal 2 damage to each opposing character whenever he is banished, that was pretty powerful. And I ended up walking away from this event going, I kind of like Bagheera. Like, I wish he was a little bit more beefier, but this is one of those cards, And see, the way that I open up product, I think it's the same way that Dylan and his crew open up product is I got my product earlier in the day. Granted, I was at work. My wife went out and got the product. She had the day off. And I don't open the product before I go to a sealed event. I go to a sealed event. I go and play Lorcana. I see what cards I really enjoy, what cards really stood out to me. And then I go back home and then open up my product. And then I'm able to go, oh, there's that card that I really like. I want to try build something. Bagheera was one of those cards. I actually ended up pulling him in the box, in our box. So just all around fun card. He surprised me quite a bit. He was a lot of fun. Kind of reminds me of ping damage a little bit. But Bagheera, Guardian, Jaguar being one here. The second one.
Think about that for a minute. Think about Bagheera for a minute. That is a built-in Swords. And Swords was so played back in Floodborne. Swords is a 5-cost uninkable card. You essentially have a 5-cost inkable card who is a character. So it's a body on the field with bodyguard with that 5-cost action built in.
Yep. That's not selecting. It's like grab your swords. It's 2 damage to everything. War doesn't matter. Yeah. So I didn't even think about that actually. So yeah. It kind of reminds me of the Scar we got with the built-in teeth inhibitions. So this is Bagheera with built-in grab your swords. So I don't know. Will he see play? I'm not too sure, but he stood out for me this weekend. I'm very happy with that card.
I think you'll see Steel Song people running it, taking out Pluto and putting him in there for a bodyguard.
Okay.
If they run a bodyguard, it costs one more, but I think it's a better card because it does damage. It does grab your swords.
Yeah, I agree. Lastly, here before we get to Dylan's picks here, this is one that it really surprised me as well. Is the Jasmine Inspired Researcher. I try to avoid combos in sealed and limited because they are generally kind of hard to pull off. Unless you pull an abundance of Eraser or something like that, which Dylan's going to talk about. That's one thing. But I noticed that I feel like I threw her in here just because I was needing some 5-count characters. But I noticed that there was a lot of allies in this set. And basically, she's a 5-drop uninkable, 3/5 questing for 2 with the ability Extra Assistance. Whenever this character quests, if you have no cards in your hand, draw a card for each ally character you have in play. 2 of my 3 games, I was able to do this successfully at least once. I believe my last game I ended up doing it twice, and card draw is powerful in sealed and limited. And I had to dump my hand first. I had to get no cards in my hand. Had to ink whatever I had to ink, and then I was questing, and then generally had at least one ally on the board here. So it's a dual ink here. I forgot to mention, I forgot to call it the colors here. Dual ink, Sapphire, Steel. I know that there are a handful of allies in both Sapphire and Steel, so this is one that really kind of surprised me, and yeah. So, and I like the flavor text on this one here. Oh, this is wonderful. I knew Archazia's thought scrolls would be worth a little extra effort. So again, the Glimmers, learning what Archazia has to share with the Glimmers in preparation for Jafar. But this one caught me by surprise. I was happy with the way that this Jasmine effect took place here. So it was fun. I like the art with this one too. So
61 ally cards.
60 in this set or in general?
In this set.
Okay, so that made perfect sense. So a lot of things had ally. At least about a quarter.
A lot of things had ally.
Cards. About a quarter of the cards.
Yep. Out of 204, 61 had ally.
About 25% roughly. That's not too bad. But those are my 2 picks. Dylan, round us out on this launch weekend. Your MVP cards from this weekend.
All right. First off, we have King Candy Royal Racer, 4-cost, uninkable, dual ink, Amber Ruby. He is a 2/2 that quests for 2. As I previously mentioned, there was not a lot of removal in this set. So you had to kind of get creative. And when I pulled this card, it made me think and actually start looking through the rest of the cards that I pulled and seeing if there was anything that I could possibly combo this with. Because his card reads, well, he has the ability, Sweet Revenge, that says, whenever one of your other racer characters is banished, each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. And once I had board control, which was kind of super easy to do with this card, I had kind of, I don't want to say it was a plethora, but I had 4 other racer cards that I had pulled. It was a 2-drop, and then I was fortunate enough to get 3 copies of the new 3-cost Amber Calhoun, that whenever you play that character, you can discard a card to give chosen character -3 attack that turn. She was a 2/4, but I was able to use my Calhouns. Yeah, I was able to use my Calhouns and my other racer characters as pawns, essentially, once King Candy was on the board, to just trade in with something, kill my own character off, or banish my own character, activate King Candy's effect, and if my opponent only had 1 character on board, they had no choice. I mean, there was at one point that someone had the new, it's not Coda, the big brother, the big bear from Brother Bear, Kenai. It was a Amethyst Kenai. It's the rare that whenever you challenge, I think it has Challenger 2 or 3, but whenever you challenge, if it's banished, it returns to your hand and you gain 1 lore. And again, we're all learning these cards as they were playing them. But I was able to use King Candy's effect on that card, and they were like, oh, okay. And they thought that it was just going to return to their hand. They were going to get the 1 lore from it. And it wasn't like that at all, because it didn't happen on their turn. And it wasn't a challenge at all. King Candy was just able to make you choose, and this is also one of those effects that would get past ward.
It reminds me of the Prince Eric we had in Into the Inklings. Similar effect, except rather than Prince Eric getting banished and then you get to select a card, it kind of opens up that effect across all your racers, but then your opponent gets to choose. So I was actually sitting next to you and I saw that happen. I was like, huh. I was like, because I mean, if you think about sealed, you're usually only playing 1 character, maybe 2 characters a turn. And if you have no board presence, yeah, it can get pretty gnarly pretty quick. So I like this. Is there enough racers for a whole, I'd say, stand on 1 leg deck, maybe this set with the racers we've seen?
It may not be competitive, but I can definitely see themed racer decks coming in, especially in that Duel Link color of Amber Ruby. We already have the different racetracks. We already have the different razors in both of those. I don't think you can necessarily rely on just King Candy to make it work, but in a fun theme deck, for sure. I mean, this is a really good card to have.
Yeah. And this last one you got
to wrap
here,
out, yeah,
I was
wrap things all together. Full circle, back to the title of this podcast and back to the duels. This last card brings us to our duel, which happened to be the first matchup of launch weekend. It was
of a lot of people being there too.
Fate have it be that way, and man, was it a match. Not only was it long, I think John was done with his game, and we were like, yeah, we're going to game 2.
It was wrong. And then John's comment was like, you guys always go long. It's like, sorry, you got 2 big brains trying to piece together a puzzle here.
Yeah, you guys playing chess over there.
We were playing chess, and our lore going back and forth, the game was super, super, super close the entire time. And then I finally got my pawn to the other side of the board and got a second queen onto the field in this chess match in the form of Spaghetti Dinner. A card that I was super, super excited for to begin with. And in our custom card deck, or portion that we haven't done in a while, I had already planned in advance that as soon as April came around, I was going to do like an April Fool's edition of like the custom cards and make Spaghetti Dinner. I had no idea that they were just going to go ahead and make this. It's such a meme card, but it's perfect in every sense. And the way that it works, it's a 2-cost uninkable item that you can exert and spend 1 ink. And if you have 2 or more characters in play, gain 1 lore. It's perfect. You have 2 characters who are sharing the spaghetti dinner, and then you get 1 lore for the magic that is happening with them sharing the spaghetti dinner. Moving the little meatball along. And
it got
our
you a lot
game
of
that was
lore.
super close. It did, because that's something else that this set did not have, was a lot of item removal. So once items were on the board, on every match, not just this item, but every match, the different coils, the training staff that you had during this match, I couldn't really get rid of it or remove it. So this was really cool to have, and once I did, the game was, I ran away. It broke me away because I had that passive 1 lore gain every turn because I had so many characters in my deck that all I needed to do was keep 1 card on the field, drawing, and then the next turn I knew that whatever I was pulling off the top was most likely going to be a character that I could just play, go ahead and use Spaghetti Dinner to get that passive lore, and then quest or attack or whatever I needed to do with that dry character.
Yeah, I was afraid that Baymax was going to run away with you, and that was my biggest fear. But you traded into something that had to go on my side here. But yeah, we were about at like the 11, 12, 13 lore mark, just neck and neck. And then once you got Spaghetti Dinner out, it hobbled you over the finish line really well, because again, there's nothing I can do. We were making very methodical trades, and it's a good game. Whenever I go to Dylan, I was like, okay, hold me accountable. Like, I forget what I did that one game. I played a Jebediah, which gives a chosen character resist. I had a Beagle Boys, quest with Beagle Boys, gave Jebediah a rush and a resist 1. I was like, I think this works. Like, these are the games that we have at our shops. And it's one of those
Then
things
some
where
of the resist fell off.
Yeah, and then
Some of it stayed.
like the Jebediah had given himself resist, stayed through through the start of my next turn. The Beagle Boys dropped off, and Dylan's like, "How much resist do you have?" So it's always a good game whenever we look at each other and we go, "Okay, hold me straight here. Like, make sure this works out." And if it doesn't, then we've done it countless times before. We've been like, "I don't think so. I don't think that works that way." And it was one of those things where we played it, and then we go through, and at the end of it, I was like, "Does that check out?" And we're both in agreement that it checked out. So, but Spaghetti Dinner for the win. It brought you right across the finish line with Spaghetti Dinner.
Will it see competitive play? Possibly in aggro decks,
Yeah.
but in a sealed format, Spaghetti Dinner was freaking awesome.
It's like a goat that costs 1 more.
Yeah, I mean, it's the lore book essentially for 1 cheaper.
John, how about
John, do you have any? You got any shout out cards?
Spaghetti Dinner was a good one. I used it. I used it in my last game, and also did the Queen of Hearts shift, the shift 3, where every time you add a new character, it takes damage when a new character comes on the board. So that's a pain in the butt for both of us, but it was 2-2 Spaghetti Dinner, 2-2 Spaghetti Dinner, 2-2 Spaghetti Dinner, while they're trying to play cards and taking damage as soon as they lay the card down. It was good. The other one for me was the Snow White that can't be challenged, because there was no way there wasn't a lot of ways to remove her in the sealed, so she just constantly sat on the board and quested for 2. Sat on the board.
I think the only thing that could have got rid of her was out of order.
Yeah, that was the only thing, and I don't
King Candy.
King Candy, yeah. But I didn't play you, so when you had it, so. But
I didn't pull that. That's something else that we could probably shout out to real quick. Is that Snow White? This is the first time that for their launch events that we are getting promotional cards for participating in launch events.
Yeah,
huge. Yeah, that was a really nice touch. Again, it just commemorates it. Like, for as long as we have that card in our collection, we'll have something to like back on and go, that was a fun night. That was a fun event to look at. And again, the foiling, beautiful. we'll talk about the change of logos in the next episode. But yeah, that was a really good touch. Was if you went to a launch event, you did get a Snow White promo. So
I also like the award or the pack awards for wins, not just top whoever or whatever like that. That was cool.
That was a good touch.
At least everybody got a pack, and if you went 3-0, you got 3 packs.
I don't think that was inside the organized play, but at least
not in the organized play. I didn't know if it was or not.
I don't think it is.
I think that was just our store and the way they went about it.
Well, good then. I like that even better then.
That was a good touch. And previously, and you may be familiar with the shops in your area, but typically the stores who did sealed or whatever, they would have a prize pool, and whoever placed through the top 5 or 6 got additional packs that night. Our store decided to do it a little bit differently, to where if you won a match, you got a pack. And I'm a fan of that. Like it capped out how much additional product you could win, being 3 packs if you won all 3 matches. But I would rather somebody who might be a little bit newer to Lorcana come to a launch event and might get 1 win, but they got something from that win. So I'm all about sharing the wealth a little bit, and shout out to our store for doing that. I think a lot of newer people to the game were, I think, pretty receptive of that. And it was a change for us, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a greater good type thing. If you're able to get a win,
community.
Yeah, if I would rather do something to benefit the community than walk away with additional packs. Granted, you get what you pay in for. I think our store had a price at $35. You get what you pay in for for the product, the 6 packs. But I'm happy they did that. So I'm curious if it'll stick, but we'll see. John, it's that time of the month again. Let's have Dylan beat me in Disney trivia, because I know I'm trying to watch more.
You won last.
You got me last time.
You got last time.
My record's not great. So.
Dylan's up 3-2, literally 3-2. You're only 1 game behind.
It's really close.
It's not that.
You win this, it's tied.
Yeah. Putting on.
But I do get the dice roll this time.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
You do get to go first this time. So Dylan does. So that may be a good thing or a bad thing. Who knows? For those that don't know, I'll explain it like I do every time we play. I have a card here with 5 questions of Disney trivia. It's any Disney trivia. It's not just movies. It's anything Disney. We go back and forth. Dylan gets to answer, and if he misses it, Preston can steal, and vice versa. We keep track of points or keep track of wins, not points, and the winner gets, I don't know, a pat on the back.
A round of applause.
Yeah, a round of applause. I haven't figured out, to do a prize yet, but we got time. So, all right. So Preston won last time, so Dylan goes first this time. And we start with Monsters University, everybody's favorite movie. In Monsters University, what is the name of the competition the fraternities compete against each other in? Let me read that again. In Monster University, what is the name of the competition the fraternities compete against each other in? My head is full of lots of stuff. So
as is mine, but the answer to this question might not be in there. Is it the Scarathlon?
Oh, no, it is not. Preston, do you know the answer?
Scarathon?
No, but you're both very close. It's the Scare Games.
Oh,
the Scare Games.
A little bit more of a generic name we needed.
Yeah. Like the Hunger Games, but the Scare Games. So, but not Hunger. Okay. All right, Preston.
Who's my captain?
This one's going to be an interesting one because it's a long time before you were born. In Pete's Dragon, how does Elliot finally show himself to Nora? Pete's Dragon from 1977.
I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest. No idea. Dylan, Pete's Dragon.
You repeat the question?
In Pete's Dragon, how does Elliot finally show himself to Nora?
Elliot's the name of the dragon. Okay, see, I've seen the live action remake of Pete's Dragon, but it's been a while.
Yeah, see,
I
this
do
is
remember
the
him
77
like
version, so I don't know if there's a difference because I've never seen the live action.
right. I mean, I'm sure there is. The only thing I remember from the live action remake is Elliot or Pete's Dragon was able to turn invisible and reappear. So I just want to say that he like made himself appear in front of her.
No, he helps light the lighthouse lamp.
I don't remember him glowing.
I don't see. I haven't seen Pete's Dragon probably almost 40 years. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Pete's Dragon. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember anything about it. That one was a hard one.
Disney Plus, here we come.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, Dylan, this one's yours. Comedian John Oliver voices a character in the remake of what classic Disney movie?
Oh my goodness. I'm just running through remakes. John Oliver?
Yeah. British guy. Was on the Daily Show. Now he's on was it Last Week Tonight or something like that on HBO. Funny guy.
The Lion King.
That is correct.
Bingo.
The 2019.
Does he play Timon?
You know what? I don't know because I haven't seen that, and it doesn't tell me. It just says The Lion King is all it says, not 2019.
Let me find out.
I never saw the 2019 version, so I couldn't tell you.
And by
I'm visualizing Timon.
Zazu.
Oh, Zazu. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Lovely bunch of coconut.
Okay, Preston, I'm going to lob you a softball. What animated feature has a rooster minstrel named Aladale who served as the narrator? Alan Aladale.
Is it Utopia?
No. Dylan. He missed it.
Did you throw?
Yeah.
Did you throw?
No. Maybe I guess go for it. That was my first guess.
Oh,
Alan Adele.
My gosh!
Shoot.
I threw him a softball.
Alana Adele.
Yeah.
You're gonna say that I'm gonna feel stupid.
Go ask some Still Song players. It's Robin Hood.
Oh, that's right, Robin Hood. Shoot. And what's funny is I just watched it for the first time in a long time, and I thought about his art, and it just screams Zootopia for some reason. That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's like making fool myself on the internet, right?
Man, I thought I lobbed that one. I thought I lobbed that one right over the middle, and he was going to bunt, and he missed it.
No, I closed my eyes and swung like a normal while growing up.
Okay, all right. It's 2-0, but we'll do the last question anyway. You know, maybe if Dylan doesn't get it, Preston will at least get a point out of it. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad is made of 2 segments based on what 2 popular literary works?
I got to name 2?
2.
I only know of 1. Okay. So Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, that is 1.
Goodness gracious. I don't know. Sleepy Hollow is the only one I know. Yeah. I thought that the whole movie, I've never seen it. I thought the whole thing was just based off of just a retelling of Sleepy Hollow.
No, it's actually 2. Do you know what the other one is, Preston?
I don't know.
It's
Dylan's first.
The Wind in the Willows.
Never heard of it.
Just like Robin Hood, apparently, for me.
All right. Well, Dylan won that one, so Dylan's up 4-2. 4-2.
When do we reset the season? Is it a year? What should we do?
I don't know. I was thinking a year, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Depends on if it gets too out of hand. We may call it early and start over again. I'm just kidding.
So what is that?
Is
that 12 episodes?
Yeah, that would be 12 episodes. So we're at 1, 2, 3,
I mean, we had that
5,
one extra one we threw in there.
6. Yeah. So we're in. There was
no, we didn't do Disney trivia during that.
Yeah, you didn't do Disney trivia during it, and there was one where you guys tied and we never
can never get the next one right.
Yeah, so we just called it a tie. So
that's funny.
That's all I got. So
I got see. My thing is I usually just my movie time is whenever I'm traveling and whatnot, and I got a pretty lengthy trip coming up. So I'm just going to shun myself to no outside of work activities and just watch movies and really get educated to not throw Alan Adele again like I did last time or this time at least. But hey, good fun. I don't know what I was thinking Zootopia. Oh well. Close. I don't know. That's not close. But anyway, if you made it, say what?
It's animals.
It's animals. Yeah, we've dealt with a lot of critters this weekend, so is what it is. But anyway, folks, if you made it this far in the episode, as always, thanks for watching. Again, we do have a lot more to talk about that has been announced and discussed in the community, but again, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark and we'd be here for another hour. So a lot more of that stuff will come inside the next episode, along with everything else that we have talked about, and kind of a continuation of Constructed and whatnot. But if this is your first time, welcome as always to the Ink Table. But feel free to follow us on all the socials. So we got the Twitter at the Ink Table Podcast, Facebook, the Ink Table Podcast, and Instagram, the Ink Table. All this will be linked inside the description below on the comments, what have you, or the website, theinktable.com. The video version of this podcast and more is going to be on our YouTube channel at the Ink Table Podcast. And then, as always, you can email us your questions or thoughts to podcast at theinktable.com. Something new I didn't realize until I probably missed it last episode was voicemails.
Yes, I just set this up. It's a website called voiceline.app. And you don't even have to you don't have to do it from your computer. You can do it from your phone. You literally go to voiceline.app/the Ink Table, hit record, you talk in your phone, you ask the question, and we can play it right on the show. It just sends it as a little audio file. So if that's something you feel so led to do.
Just feel free to hop on there and tell me I stuck at Disney trivia. But you also got Dylan on Twitter at DylanBA17, and then myself at Preston McNair on YouTube for more Lorcana content, shorts and whatnot. But if this is your first episode or you're coming back, thanks for hanging out with us for the past 2 hours roughly. Be sure if you're listening to this podcast to consider subscribing on whichever platform you're listening on, or leaving us a rating on whichever platform you are listening on. It helps us get a lot more visibility, more listeners. It helps more than you could ever know. As always, thanks for hanging out with us on all the other socials as well, on Facebook and whatnot, seeing the shorts. But do know that the duel is just beginning. There's one coming up with Jafar. And to prepare for that, not only do we have Archazia to help us out, but you do have a spot at the Ink Table to help you prepare for that battle. So, folks, enjoy Constructed. Enjoy your first weeks of Archazia's Island. We will see you in the next episode. Adios.